Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Just before we get into this week's podcast, I'd like to take a second to say two things. Number one, thanks for tuning in once again. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for every listen, every download, every watch. Secondly, if you can take time to subscribe to wherever you listen to or watch us, it would be greatly appreciated, and it would do a lot for us and the show. Thanks. Enjoy this week's episode. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Your Health podcast. What is up, dude? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. It is Friday. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm going to a Guardians game tonight. Getting a tattoo done tonight, which I'm really excited about.
I'm
actually,
jealous.
within the next hour and a half, I'll be getting inked up. So I'm excited. It's going to be a good weekend.
I'm jealous that you get tattooed.
I know you're jealous, and you know, but you can go get a tattoo right now. Actually, we should plan it so that we both are getting a tattoo at the same time at different parts of the world, and we can share our experiences live on the podcast as we're getting tattooed.
Yeah, I'm up for that. Or we could do it that we do it in person.
Do it in person while we're getting tattooed, right?
Or both.
In fact, you know what we should just do. You know, Aaron's gonna probably leave me, but we should just every time we're doing the podcast be getting a tattoo. So our entire bodies.
I'm okay with that. I don't know if you're totally okay with that.
Like, Dave, what's wrong with you?
yeah. Anyway, dude, aside from getting a tattoo and going to a Guardians game, what's going on?
Listen, man, you know, it sucks because I've lost about 50 pounds of muscle in these past 3 days.
I will say, don't joke about that because people on the internet will take you seriously.
My gosh, you know, I made a joke on Discord about being a deload week. So long story short, I had, sprained my ankle at Orange Theory. It's either sprained or stress fracture. I don't know what. I'm probably going to go get it looked at this weekend. But it's killing me. And so I decided to take a deload because I was running pretty hard. I can tell, like, for anybody that doesn't know what a deload is, like, if you're going really heavy at things continuously, especially if you're lifting, 4 or 5 times a week and you're putting a lot of stressor on your body,
or 7 or 15
or 15 or 20, that you just don't tell Ben, your body can't continuously do that over and over and over again with some time to actually relax. And so there's kind of 2 ways of thought on deload. One is just cold turkey it for a few days and let your body kind of adjust, recover your nervous systems, your tendons, things like that to kind of recover. And then, or you do like a percentage of the weight, typically around, 40% or so of the weight that you typically would do on your lifts, just to give your body basically a break to kind of go and heal. And I can always tell when I need a deload because my arms start to ache like really bad, like the tendons, the bones, they start to ache really bad. I just feel like run down and sore. My heart rate variability, if you're tracking that, definitely doesn't bounce back or recover as fast as possible. So I can start to see when it's time for me to just take a step back, and take a look at my whole thing. Like, am I getting enough sleep? Right. Am I eating the right macronutrients and getting the proper things in my body? What's my blood work say? Like, those can all be important deciding factors of maybe it's not just a deload, but it might be something else. But
so what you're saying is you go through a list of absolutely everything that it could be before you'll admit the fact that you just
deload. Yeah. That's right.
And I will also say that we don't trust Dave to go and just lift that 40%. So we do the cold turkey thing.
That's 100% correct. There's no chance. There's no chance. Yeah. Like if I get in the gym and I'm lifting, I'm going all out at an extreme to every capacity, and there is no chance that I am ever going 40%. So so we just cold turkey it. But I do need it with my ankle and everything else. But we'll let it heal, and be back to deadlifting, here very shortly, hopefully tomorrow. So we'll see. But just kidding. How about you? How do you been? Wearing the Cavs jersey, man. Up in Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes, yeah. I've worn this a couple of times in the past few weeks because it's been sunny, and I like how it fits. So I think this might just be my new work attire. Dude, like, without going too much into it or like being a little bit airy-fairy, I feel like I'm like reaching a new iteration of myself from the things that I've been doing, the work that I've been doing with Kira, and like just things that I have going on with work, with people I'm having conversations with, just like stuff that I have going on day to day. So it's cool because it's like, this stuff's new. I had a really cool conversation. In fact, I've had a couple of cool conversations in the past 2 days. The one more specifically, I actually just recorded about an hour ago with Tyler of his client hot seat. And it's just something I really enjoy doing, is having a conversation with clients about their progress, about how they've changed, and about things that they've sort of benefited from in terms of, the stuff that we've done in the year and a half, whatever it might be. And then a couple of really cool conversations in the past couple of days just about work and just about what it is that I actually do, and had a call with Ryan and Josh about marketing and like planning ahead, just like loads of really fucking cool stuff going on that I feel grateful to actually be able to do. So I feel like I'm moving towards the next level of myself, and it's exciting. So yeah, things are really good, dude. They're really, really good.
Dude, that is exciting. Like when you're one-upping yourself and level upping yourself, I should say, not one-upping, but level upping yourself. That's a really cool feeling and exciting, right? I feel like you hit those spurts, every so often, especially if you're continuously putting the work in and doing it. It doesn't happen immediately, right? And that's a life lesson for everybody on the fitness journey, in business, career progression, everything else. You don't just randomly hit the lottery. I mean, some people do, but it's extremely rare, right? The chances of that and probability are probably going to be waiting your whole life for something like that to occur, right? And so those types of level ups you can kind of see in your life, and the progress that you've put into and the work that you put into it to kind of hit to that spot. It's just building blocks on top of building blocks on top of building blocks on top of building blocks, right? And a lot of people will get very complacent with where they're at, saying, hey, I've kind of hit my top, I've hit my pinnacle, my reach, and I'm good here, and I'm just going to stop, right? Whereas, you look at successful entrepreneurs, you look at people that have been successful with health and fitness, you look at, folks just like yourself of where you've come from and what you've been able to build. You're never good with status quo. You're never good with where you're at. You want to continuously figure out the best way to improve. And, you could close down your registration for onboarding new customers because you're like, listen, I'm going to one up this and make it even better, right? I'm going to level up the program, I'm going to level up myself. I'm going to put the time on myself into the process, into the program, to make sure that I can do the absolute best. And now you're in a position where you're getting there and you're moving there, and you focused on your mind, and you focused on, everything else around that. So kudos to you, dude. That's really awesome.
Yeah. And I think, the funny thing is, obviously I sort of closed mid-May, then we obviously had the event. And for the first couple of weeks this month, I was like, I almost didn't really know what to be doing. Like I wasn't taking onboarding calls, I wasn't taking sales calls. I was like, I don't really know what to do. So I think it's sort of taken me a few weeks to actually probably decompress for a couple of weeks and like find my, I guess my baseline of like where I was at. I was like, right, what is it that I actually want to do in this time that I'm not taking on new clients? So this week's been fun. It's like I said, it's cool to have the opportunities. It's cool to speak to new people. It's cool to sort of, I had a lot of conversations yesterday. I was at a, believe it or not, celebration for the United States Independence Day. Obviously, it was a couple of weeks early, I would imagine, because the people who want to celebrate it in America want to be in America whenever they're celebrating it. But a cool event to be on. It was like, I think it was maybe 600 or 700 like entrepreneurs from Northern Ireland there. And it was just like, as you know, I'm not a very, maybe you don't know this, but as you know, I'm not a very like, I'll not actively go and have a conversation with someone. So I was like, I really challenged myself to do that. And there's some cool people doing some cool stuff. But on the flip side of that, whenever I tell people what I do, they think that same thing. And I'm like, I actually do really cool stuff. Like I have a really cool business and have really cool opportunities and work with really cool people. So it was good to sort of get that reinforced. And then today I went for lunch with a guy that I've known my entire life. I bumped into him yesterday. He was my surefire person I knew was going to be at this event yesterday. So I caught up with him, and I used to actually coach him one-to-one. He was like, so what have you been up to? And I was like, I mean, in the past 3 years, quite a lot, let me tell you. And he was just like, that's fucking really cool. So yeah, things are good. It's cool to sort of be in, like I said, the position and have a little bit of direction on what's going on in the next couple of months. But yeah, I definitely have worked a lot in my mind. Working with Kira has definitely helped. And it's funny because I didn't ever really intend to be working with Kira. I hit the thing by accident, and I sort of initially signed up for her, whatever it was, 8-week program. And I think I'm 3 weeks in. And I said to her yesterday, I was like, look, I know this is only meant to be an 8-week thing, but you're not getting rid of me. Like I need to continue to do this. Just the stuff that we're going through, and having the tough conversations and actually working out a lot about myself, in order basically to put together what I'm going to present, hopefully, at the B-Sides Pittsburgh event. So yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff going on in my head, but a lot of good stuff. Like I said, worked on the mind. Training's been good because I have the capacity to put a little more into it. Nutrition's been good, and I feel overall pretty fucking good, dude.
One thing I'll say too is, for men in general, it's just a blanket statement across the board. Men typically have a very difficult time expressing emotion, as well as being able to open up to people to express that type of emotion, right? I know it's a problem that I have just in general. I feel like I can confide in, my friends and things like that. But when it comes to like things I'm struggling with, I typically don't talk about that. It's just not something I do, but I do talk about it to Aaron, who I confide in, which has been good. But my wife. But other than that, I don't really express issues or concerns or things like that to other people, just in general, because one, I think I do a good job of balancing negative, things and trying to cut that out of my life as much as possible so that I don't have to deal with it. But when I'm super stressed out, things like that, my family can definitely notice, because I'm more distant, I'm not talking as much. I might be, moving around or working on things, just trying to correct it. And so, it's good to be able to have somebody to talk to, especially someone that's a professional, to be able to listen, and I'm not saying your issues are huge or bad, but you're able to at least, work through some of the challenges that you have and maybe the mind blocks or roadblocks that you're running into with your own self, and having somebody overcome them. It's no different than what we talk about here on the podcast, and what other people have gone through in their struggles of opening up on, their weight loss transformations or why they failed before to the past in fitness. These types of things can be really beneficial to figure out, where you may have failed in the past. How do you be successful in the future? And I think that's really important for people to understand, is that, talking to somebody isn't a sign of weakness. It's more so a sign of strength. And it's a way for you to get better as a person, human being. And if you bottle that up, you continue to bottle that up, it's just going to continue to eat you away and cause you to have issues.
Yeah. And I think the thing about it is like,
Not get better,
I think the thing for me, I've always said that whenever it comes to coaching, I can only sort of coach as far as I'm willing to go myself. So sort of stepping outside the box and like, right, okay, well, things are good. Like life is good, business is good, training is good, but there's still those things that I know hold me back, and they're never going to be resolved if I don't address what they are. And it's funny, like just some of the conversations even having with Kira, and like literally all we're doing at the minute is trying to piece together a 15-minute talk that I can present on like myself and my journey. And it's like, she will listen to me and tell me things that I have like repeatedly said that I potentially wouldn't even know myself. She will also put me in awkward positions where I know it's going to happen, and I'm like,
yeah.
She's like, right, I want you to read this thing out you've typed, and it's like me and her in the call. I'm like, fucking hell, all right, like not embarrassed, but like not confident in what I'm doing. So like challenging myself on that, and then even to go to that event yesterday, I was just off the call with her, and I was like, fuck, I'm just going to start talking to people. Like, like what have I got to lose? And I think that this is what I want to talk about today, as a bit of a realization that I had after that event yesterday. I would have always said I'm not the person to go out and actively engage in those conversations. I'm not a social person. I don't really like interacting, with strangers. And my thought around it was, I'm never going to be that person if I keep telling myself I'm not that person. So it's, the things that you tell yourself will be the narrative. And I was actually listening to a podcast earlier on, and one of the things that they said, it was almost about as humans, we'd like to sort of stick to what we know. So whether that was what I seen whenever I was growing up, or the experiences that I had, or the influences that I had, that will sort of write my narrative. And anything outside of that is, again, as we said about training and about everything else that we sort of do, there is friction there. And it's about taking control of that, understanding that you are in control of that, and essentially breaking that mold and breaking that cycle. Because if I'm this way, then Harper's going to be that way, and then that will just continue forever and ever and ever. But I have the opportunity to take control of that, and I can rewrite that narrative because I'm in control. So if I understand that, and I push myself out of those comfort zones, and I tell myself I am either the thing that I want to become, or I'm not the thing that I say that I was before, it gives me so much more control and so much more freedom on what I can do. And it literally, like, it's endless possibilities whenever you start to take control of those things. And I think even thinking back to from whenever I first ever spoke to you, 2.5-3 years ago, to where I am now, like if I was to tell that person that I'm this person, then I'd be like, nah, I don't really believe it. But I am, because of the things that I've done and the things that I've done to sort of step out my comfort zone. So today I want to talk about essentially it's the way that you speak to yourself, or the narrative that you have about yourself, and how you can be in control of that. And that goes, to the people that you hang around with, and I guess back to the sort of environment piece. But the biggest thing that came from the event yesterday was just actually not telling myself that I'm a person that doesn't involve myself in social situations, and I get awkward when I'm talking to new people because they're just a person the same way that I am. So why would I be awkward in having a conversation? Like, I have conversations with people all the time. Like, I would have had a conversation with you and not knowing you at the start. So I do it in certain situations. So why would I not do it in others?
Yeah. I'll tell you, people don't understand the power of yourself. And I think it's our human nature to continue to go with the flow. You always hear that term, go with the flow, right? And I hate that term because I never want to go with the flow. Like, things are great right now, but could they be better? Could I, achieve something even greater than what I've achieved now in my life, with my family and my friends, my businesses, everything else. And the power of being able to tell yourself that and have confidence in yourself, and also having people around you to have the confidence in you. I'll tell you a story when I first started Trusted Sec, which was, I was at a perfectly great, stable job. I had nothing to worry about as far as my job was going. I was making a great salary. We were just building our family. My wife, had just had twins. So it was I have 3 kids. These are our younger kids. And so we just had twins. And I was working at this Fortune 1000 company as a chief security officer, and I was 27 years old. I was the youngest VP in the history of the company. I had 50 some people reporting to me. I reported directly to our board at 27 years old. Is an amazing accomplishment, right?
And you were like, "Fuck this."
I was like, "F this, I'm done. I'm going. I'm going to go do." But I could have easily stayed there my entire career, right? And I had a safety net too. If I ever got terminated, I had a great package that could have been put together, what they call, I guess, a golden parachute or whatever. So I was at the executive level. I was working with their CEO and CFO. I was working with all the major business units. Our program was had a direct impact on our business and our customers. So, we were more of a profit center and cost center at the same time, where we won deals because of our security program. And we were able to really, catapult this Fortune 1000 company forward. And, I looked at that and I said, I have an amazing team. Everything's going great right now, but I feel like I can do better. I can do more with myself. And if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it ever again, because I'll just be comfortable and complacent, with where I'm currently at. And not that that's a bad thing, because again, I had achieved so much in so little time. And I went home to my wife and I said, listen, Erin, I think I want to leave this company and try to start my own company and do my own thing. And she's like, well, after the first initial shock and like, are you crazy, type of thing. She said to me the words that I always remember, which is, I know you always do what you possibly can for this family, and you always be successful at what you put your mind to. So I have the confidence in you. And if this is what you want to do, let's do it together. And that validation right there alone was enough to catapult me past my own reservations, right? Because I was on the fence. I was like, man, can I really do this? Do I really want to leave a great job, where, things are going just fine, and, start a company with all the stress that it is? I've never done it before. I don't even know how to register an LLC or how to do finance or what and benefits are or anything like that. I had nothing. I had no idea, right? I knew how to build a website, but when it came to actually running a company or starting a company, I had no clue what to do. It was from ground zero, right? So I'm basically going from a certain point of where I had hit the top of where I could have gone to going back to ground zero again, with the perceived benefit that, I would catapult up again and do things very differently. And if I hadn't done that, my life would be completely different. I wouldn't own several highly successful, global cybersecurity companies. I wouldn't be doing the investments that I do, and other types of things. It would be a completely different life. And I'm so glad that I took that opportunity. But again, to have that support system of people around me saying, you can do this, you're special, you're great, you're amazing. I have confidence in you. I trust you. We'll figure this out. That was everything that I needed to kind of push myself forward. And I don't think people realize the power of community, of friendships, of your surrounding environments, and things like outside forces, like social media, news, things like that continuously barrage you with negative information. And so I really made a conscious effort early on in my life to say, and I talked about this a little bit in my speech that I gave when I won Entrepreneur of the Year, which, by the way, in itself is insane, right? Again, I had no idea what the hell I'm doing. Get all these people up here that, are doing all these amazing things with medical research and, trying to cure cancer and all this other stuff. And all of a sudden, Dave Kennedy's the winner of Entrepreneur of the Year. I'm like, what? How does that even compute? But one of the stories that I told about kind of my philosophy on life is I can actually pinpoint one specific period of time in my life that my view on life changed substantially. And sometimes it takes, an act of God or something catastrophic or something just so extreme that it knocks you out of the cycle that you're in. Right. We see this in alcoholism and, spirituality, things like that can make a big difference. But for me, I was in Iraq and I was taking a convoy and I was going from Al Ramadi to Fallujah, which was in what's called the Sunni Triangle of Death, which is, as you can imagine, probably a resort, very, very safe.
5-star, highly recommended holiday destination. Yeah.
The food was absolutely incredible, concierge service. And I had been going normally, with Marines, I'd travel in convoys of Marines that are armed to the T, like 50 cals and all of these massive convoys. And, we got all of this, we go overboard, which I'm very appreciative of. Well, in this case, I was doing a joint operation with the Army from an intel perspective. And we were having a lot of rockets and mortars and things like that happening over in the Fallujah area at the time. So we're trying to figure out which groups were associated with that and, work with special forces and things like that. And so I took a convoy with the Army over from Al Ramadi, which was my main base at the time, over to Habaniya, which was what we call a forward operating base, and then eventually to Camp Fallujah. And in that period of time, it happened to be one of the bloodiest days in Iraq where there was just some major offensives going on from the insurgency that was there. And so our convoy was really weak in the sense that we only had like 3 or 4 vehicles basically traveling, but there was convoys going at the time, and multiple convoys got hit. Our convoy got hit, and I just remember looking up at the sky, and there, I just remember this one moment. Because I was basically like, this is it, like this is the end, type of thing, right? And I said, listen, if there's a God up there, I don't know if you're there or not, but if you're up there, I promise I will try to live every day as I can, as it's a gift, and I will push myself to the max as I possibly can. And I remember saying that in my head and thinking it out loud, or saying, I think I even said it out loud. I don't remember, but I was able to make it through and survive, even though a number of folks that day unfortunately did not. And so I treated every day basically as a gift, and so every day that I look at it, I'm like, well, what can I do to make a change to help other people, or to help, people around me, or to make, the world, I always hear the slogan. I always, it's embedded in trusted tech, it's embedded in binary defense, but how do I make the world a better or safer place, has always been kind of my slogan. And so, I always try to think about that when I'm making decisions, and things that I can control and things I can't control. I take the things that I can't control out of the equation, and things I can control or make better, I push forward on. Right. And that type of obviously a big impact on me personally, but I've never faulted from, or at least I try to never fault from that type of mindset. And I always try to surround myself with people that value good people and continue to want to do the same type of thing. So, big things can make a big difference in your life, but also how you talk to yourself and how you push yourself forward can also have a major impact in your career, your life, everything else that you do can touch that, right?
Yeah, and I think that, to go back to what you said about going with the flow, like in that job you were in, you could have just went with the flow. Like the flow, I would imagine, is you just work your way up, and you just continue on that path. And the one thing that I will say is that's okay. Like if that's what people want to do and that's the life that they want to live, like I'm not saying that that's wrong and we're right in what we're saying. I'm just saying that for me to sort of essentially, like you said, like to make a difference to people's lives, whatever it might be, there has to be a bit of going against the grain on things. And I, like some of the stuff that I've sort of worked on with Kira in the past couple of weeks is sort of establishing, like I always kind of thought I was different in some way, shape or form. And I think when you're younger, you see that as a negative because all you want to do is like fit in, essentially. Like you just want to find your spot. As I sort of grew a bit older, I'll not say wiser, but just definitely older, there was a lot of power in the difference. And, even probably up until recently, I would have always said, like, you'll know yourself, like, I'll never really make things about me, or I'll never really take the credit. But again, to take it right back to even what you're saying there, like the decisions that you made on that day to leave your job or whatever, that decision, like that changed absolutely everything that came after that. You know, and the same for me, like the decision that I made whenever I left my job, or even whenever I started training, like that one decision changed absolutely everything that came after that. And I wouldn't necessarily say I knew at the time that it was going to be that way. But if I look back, like you said, there are definitely certain moments in your life that you can pinpoint that it absolutely changed the trajectory of not just your life and your family's life, but everybody that you employ after that, everybody that you work with as a company. Like the scale to the change and the difference that made beyond you making that one decision is something that you probably couldn't even like fathom a number on.
No, I mean, I had no clue. I remember Aaron and I, when we first started this, we're like, hey, it'd be awesome if we like someday had like 5 or 10 employees, right?
But even that, like you could have built the company and had 5 or 10 employees,
right,
and had a good life, and you know, had a successful company and ran it like that and been okay with that. But again, you're like, I'm destined for more. I know there is more out there.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned that because, you know, I got to experience early on a consulting organization that I learned a lot coming out of the military. Like it was incredible, the amount of knowledge, you know, what I was able to do as far as career wise and kind of establish myself as, you know, a forward thinker in the industry and get to know some really amazing folks. But, you know, it was a very toxic / bad organization. And I learned a lot of how not to run a company.
What not to do.
Like what not to do, you know, like seriously, how not to lead, you know, folks and treat folks and, you know, and so you have one spectrum of like just absolute craziness and chaos and mayhem on one side. And then I'm like the polar opposite spectrum of how I started my company. Right. It's like,
but I think that feeds into what you said about starting from zero. You know, okay, you left your company, but I wouldn't say you started from zero again, because you came to start that company with all the knowledge you had up until that point. And we talk often about how every decision you make leads you up to that point. So even if I stopped coaching right now and went and started a fucking laundrette company, like I would approach that with all the knowledge that I have up until this point. I wouldn't be starting from completely zero again.
You're right. And you know, when we talk about these decisions, it's not like I'm YOLOing it and I don't know, you know, any experience. Yes, I didn't know how to start a business or run a business, but guess what? There's a lot of great stuff online to figure that out. You know, I knew that I was able to run a successful team and have the respect, you know, of my team that I ran in a very large organization, that I was able to work with executives and board members and things like that and establish my career. You know, I knew that I'd put a lot of time in building my brand and reputation in the security industry so that, you know, if I went off on my own, it's not like I'm trying to start from, you know, ground zero from that perspective. So every component that I did during my career. And that's why, you know, when I reflect back at that consulting company, I don't look at it as a negative, you know, even though it was highly stressful. It wasn't a great place to be. You know, I have great memories there. You know, I'm very appreciative that I was there because I learned a lot. Right. And that was one stepping stone into another stepping stone into another stepping stone. But I continued to move forward. Right. I continued to push myself to what I possibly could to get to the point to where I'm at today. And the point I'm at today is just the beginning. You know, I'm just getting started here. So, you know, I'm just going to quit my job now and start another company. But you know,
you're going to quit your job and be a personal trainer.
But I think that shows the power of being driven, right? And the power of recognizing what you want to accomplish and executing on that with the ability to look not just what's in front of you, but what's beyond that, right? And you have to do that in fitness. You know, if you're expecting immediate results in fitness, it's not going to happen. You know, the small goals, the small wins, the building blocks that you have in your life are the things that allow you to build upon one another to get to the desired results that you're at. And, you know, it's interesting. Yesterday, Aaron had ordered some ice cream after the baseball event, you know, for Mason's team won in baseball. And, you know, we went and celebrated and got some ice cream. And I was good. I wasn't going to have any ice cream because I didn't have enough calories because I'm, you know,
because I cut them yesterday.
You cut my calories. And, you know, I said to Erin, she's, you know, I said, you know, no, I'm good. I'm just going to hang out and, you know, hang out with the family, and I'm good with the calories. And I was right on protein goals and everything else, but I couldn't slip in a small sundae at that time. It's just not my bank right now. Had I planned for it? Sure. but it wasn't something that was in my goal for that day. And she's like, I can't believe you can just, one day, be cool with like eating Sundays or whatever. And then the next day you're like, no, I'm good. And then it doesn't bother you at all. I'm like, no, because like I have a system in place that I know what I need to accomplish in my goals, and I just follow that system. Right. So now that I'm in a cutting phase, I know that that's just one day, but it's one day that I'm now just starting off on, by the way. So I'm definitely going to hold true to it. But, I need to stay consistent with what I'm doing here so that I hit the goals that I want to establish. And, if you continuously let your goals slip every day, or what you're working on slip every day, or the world distractions, allow you to slip on your objectives every day, you're never going to hit the goals that you want to. And so you have to be consistent. And you look at, you've always preached this, Ben, which is, hey, if you overeat on one of your days, that's one day, right? In the grand scheme of things. But if you don't go back to it the next day, or the next day, or the next day, or next day, or next day, you're never going to hit the goals that you want to, because you're not consistent with what you're doing. And so when you come down to it, it's really just consistency and having the forward vision of what you want to accomplish, and then executing on that slowly but surely, making progress, chipping away at that massive rock, in the event that rock's now going to be a diamond, right? And so, when we look at anything in our lives, the journey that we try to go through in our lives, it has to be with that long-term view of what we want to accomplish. And you may not know how to get there exactly, but if you're going in the right direction, or, as my CEO of Binary Defense says, shoot towards that North Star. As a company, we're aligned to the North Star, keep moving towards the North Star. Eventually, the things that need to be in place to get to that North Star will be there. As long as you're focusing on that goal. And again, that comes with the people around you, that comes with your own mindset, and being able to say, yes, there's a lot of distractions out in this world, but this is important to me, so I'm going to dedicate time to go and do it. And my brain may fight me on it for a while, but eventually I'm going to overcome it because it's the right thing for me to do. Those types of things are what make a huge inspirational change and impact in your life long term.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things to unpack there, and I was trying to remember them as you went through them. The first thing, whenever you said about progress, like, I think that's one of the things of why I really like the gym. It's the constant progress, and it's not necessarily always progressing in terms of getting leaner or getting bigger. It's just knowing that there is an opportunity to progress. That's why I like business. That's why I like you. That's why you can see that I'm excited about the next level, because I know that is progress. So the thing for me that is, I guess, addictive with it is the progress. The thing that you said there about the ice cream, like the, grand scheme of things, would it have really fucking mattered if you had eaten an ice cream? Probably not. But there's a couple of things at play there. Number one, the narrative that you have for yourself. You told yourself you weren't going to do something, or you were going to do something in terms of sticking within your calories. Because you stuck to that, you reinforce that belief and that behavior around yourself that you're in control. Whereas, yes, okay, it maybe is just eating an ice cream, but then the next time you're like, oh, well, I had it the last time, so it'll be fine this time. And then before you know it, you're eating fucking ice cream every single day, and you lose that sort of almost like respect in yourself of like the control side. And it's funny because we were wrapping up the client hot seat with Tyler, and I was like, give 3 pieces of advice. Now, to set the context of this, I always start these things with, in those client hot seats, it's not about me. It's not about the program. It's not a sales pitch as such, because the only people who are ever going to see them are people who are already within the program. So I always finish them with, what 3 pieces of advice would you give to someone who is watching this, whether they're a month in, 6 months in, a year in, whatever. And the first thing that he said was about those decisions you make, and have a vision or a visual of the person that you want to become, whether it's in a year, whether it's in 5 years, or whatever else, and think like that person. Like, start to orientate your thoughts as to what would that person do. So whether it is, somebody who's in shape, or somebody who's successful in business, or somebody who's a public speaker, like, what decisions do they make to drive them towards that goal? And that helps with pretty much every decision that you want. And the point that he made is, that's one thing that he learned, that I taught him very early. And it's like, whenever you're in a decision like that and you're hungry, the exact example he used was, you're hungry, you've got 10 calories left, and there's a Reese's peanut butter cup there, and you're like, that looks good, I'm in for that, like, sign me up. In that split decision, could you just eat that? Yes, that's absolutely fine. But the person who is in control of their life and in control of their nutrition and in shape, that's not the decision that they would make. So having that narrative allows you then to become that person, like, think like that person that you want to become. But the point that he made in it was, that's where it started. but it filters into every sort of every other aspect of your life, whether it is running a business, whether it is whatever way you parent, whatever it is about being a friend, whatever you want to mark, you want to leave on the people around you. Like, you can use that in every single scenario in life. And again, a lesson that comes from something that you do of managing nutrition or managing your training is something that can then sort of filter into every other aspect of your life. And then the person that you become and the identity and the narrative that you have around yourself. I'm glad you didn't eat the ice cream. I would imagine you would have planned for it. You just didn't plan for me cutting your calories, 500 calories that day.
That's very true. What's great though is, you even said on the check-in for yesterday was, this is a little bit more aggressive than I'm normally going to do, but I know, one, you're going to want to push it, and two, I know you can handle it. So, by knowing me and my personality and who I am, right, that I'm able to, handle that specific type of thing, and that we've gotten into a perfect system where I can kind of ebb and flow where I need to, based on what our objectives are, which has taken a long time to build the confidence in myself, the thought in myself, we talked about it so many times on the podcast, but there were so many times where I just didn't trust myself in this process, right? Like, hey, I failed. I'm back to Big Dave again. And that's completely gone, right? I don't have that anymore. I don't have I'm overweight, or I'm, Big Dave again. I'm Big Dave in a different way. I really have come a long way to where, hey, if we bulk, we're going to bulk for a little bit. And, I'm not going to be as lean as I normally am. I know when I cut, I'm going to be lean and I'm going to look amazing for like 2 weeks, but then I'm going to want to bulk again. So,
But then I guess, yes, it's a confidence in yourself, but yeah. I guess the ultimate, the overarching thing that I'm trying to get across here in the sort of realization that I had yesterday is the belief that you have in yourself. You need to believe that you can do it. And I think the sort of narrative that you potentially had before is, before you had the confidence and before we went through everything that we went through, the belief that you had about yourself was, yes, I know I can lose weight, but I always put it back on again, or I always revert to X, Y, and Z, from previous versions of yourself, because that's the life that you've led and that's the evidence that you had. Whereas now we have an entirely different set of evidence. We have an entirely different set of beliefs around you as a person, and you have an entirely different set of thought processes. Now, again, not by any stretch of imagination an overnight thing. And again, on top of that, not an always thing. There's times that I find myself not doing the things that I said, or not living the life that I thought I would, or not making decisions based on my future self. And I have to realign myself, and that's okay too. Like, not being 100% on it all the time is part of the process, essentially. So it's that belief that you have in yourself. If you believe one thing or you don't believe one thing, either of those are going to be true in terms of whatever narrative that you want to write about yourself. And it's hard because of the evidence that you have, and it's hard because of everything that you've ever been through. And it's easy to just accept that. It's easy to, I can lose 50 pounds, but I can also then just put it back on and then just be in that cycle forever, because that's what you read about yourself. It's hard to break out of that. I think that's ultimately what I'm trying to get across here today is, that belief and that narrative that you have around yourself is what will be true in some way, shape, or form.
Yep. And, there's an awesome saying too, we should also be happy with, and it's not to say that you shouldn't be happy with what you have accomplished today, right? Even though, you're always continuously making things better. You're continuously improving yourself. You're continuously fine tuning what works best, or how to be more successful, or how to do things that allow you to accomplish the goals that you want to. You do want to take a step back and appreciate and love life the way that it was designed for, right? To take a look and appreciate the outdoors, or, while you're spending time with your family and kids, watching them grow and to become their own individual humans. And those types of things are important to experience. I'm not talking about not experiencing and loving life. That's a big difference. In fact, I would say that, my view on life and cutting out the negativity and positivity allows me to really continuously every day appreciate life more and more every day, and the people that I have around me even more. I know we played last week the video around people that don't ask for anything, or usually because they are very selective of the people they have in their life and are appreciative of the people they have in their life and value that, and so they don't want to add additional people to their life because their things are good the way that they are. There's also a video, and I don't need to play it, but there is just a saying in there that really resonated with me, which is, sometimes you are so focused on the future that you don't realize you're in the middle of what you used to pray for.
So on that note, Matt, I put it up here. He put it on a story or on a book that he was reading. One of the lines in it is, by trying too hard to make the most of his time, he missed his entire life. And I was like, that is a powerful in itself. So it's like, it's the trying, and again, to sort of go back, the Mark, who you met whenever you were over here, that's who I was out with yesterday. He's very good at reminding me that the problems and the struggles and where I'm at now, previous me would have absolutely killed to be in. And like you said, because of sort of our nature, we're always like, what's the next thing? How do I get better? How do I improve this? How do I progress? You don't ever really, or I find it difficult to stop and think, fuck, right, a year ago, this is what I was working towards, and now I'm here.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And even like, I know that we joke about wanting to be leaner and wanting to be bigger. Again, if I was able to use your time machine and collect you from today's version and bring you from now to the first call that we ever had and say, this is going to be you in 2.5 years time, you'd have been like, no fucking way. But now you're like, well, but how do I get bigger and how do I get leaner and what do we do? I just want to get bigger, I just want to get stronger. Like, we don't ever take...
I think 2.5 years ago, I'm looking at where I could be 2.5 years from now. It's like,
But it's a hard thing to do. And I think it's a difficult thing to balance. And it's like, how do we have that mindset of like always wanting to progress, always wanting to be better, and always wanting to do more, but also appreciate the journey and the sort of everything that it's teaching us on the way?
Yeah,
I don't have the answer. So if anybody's listening wants the answer, I don't have it. So if you have it, please send it on a postcard, and I'll read them out.
Yeah, well, listen, I think what you're hearing us say here is that, if you're stuck in some sort of hole and you feel like you can't get out, that's usually because you're stuck in your own head, and you got to figure out a way to get out, whether that's through support, help, whether that's through how you talk to yourself. Kira had made she's like, the simplest thing that you can do that has the biggest impact on how you view yourself and how your day is going to go is by waking up in the morning and telling yourself this is going to be an awesome day, right? And starting the day off with positivity. I saw I'm on Instagram all the time, and I send Ben, funny photos. It's the one that I sent him recently was like, your trainer telling you that you have, 1,800 calories and it's 10 a.m. and you're already there,
But I think, again, from, it was great to have Kira in the podcast, and she gave a good overview about like what she does, but like working with her on a one-to-one level and like understanding that a little bit more, and actually understanding her journey and sort of what led her to there. I don't know if you probably haven't watched it because I only watched it last week. She did a TED talk, and emotional. I was emotional watching it, and I'm not really. And there's me telling myself I'm not an emotional guy. I don't usually get emotional. I was emotional watching it. But just actually hearing her story and sort of understanding how she got to where she was. And I think it's very easy potentially for people to look at me and go, it's easy for you, you're the coach, you've always looked like that. Or it's easy for you, Dave, you run the business like you've always done, like I'm not a business person, I just do this and this. It's easy to sort of pass the buck in terms of, well, it's okay because you're up here and I'm here. Yes, while I might be up here in something, I'm probably down here in a lot of other things. And it's understanding what your strengths are and understanding that even if things are not your strength at that time, like running a business or getting in shape. Whenever I first started, I was skinny, like weak. I actually wish I had some of my original logbooks because I would be hilarious to see the weights that I was lifting. And yes, okay, well, it's great to get compliments on the weight that you lift now. I haven't always been that way. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's those changes and making those decisions and taking that control that has led me to be able to do this, to have this conversation, for you to be able to run the business. Like it's never, it was easy for you. It's the decisions that we made that have led us to here.
Yeah. And getting back to the Instagram videos, like that I was talking about before, like the one that I really kind of hit me hard that I liked a lot was
the one about the calves.
Calves one. Everybody's doing their job except the calves. We're doing nothing. But there was a statement about it was a motivational one. I wish I would have saved it. But it was about how people that are getting ridiculed for bodybuilding or hitting the gym all the time and focusing on their health and fitness, where you're thinking about, am I getting enough grams of protein, or am I, hitting the gym enough? Those are the type of people that get up early in the morning, that accomplish something for themselves, a positive, force that allows them to reduce stress, to start off already accomplished in the day, where they're already, have done more than 99% of, the population out there when it comes to focusing on their health and longevity and everything else. That's why this thing is such a great, thing, because it impacts not us just from a physique perspective, but it also hits us from a mental capacity. I can tell you that I am much more energetic. I'm much more upbeat when I lift in the morning, and I get that accomplished, throughout the day, or even in the afternoon or whatnot. Right? It is something that is fulfilling for me, and it's interesting because if you can start the day off in a positive, whether that's going out for a walk, or just taking time for yourself and just taking a cup of coffee. If you listen to Huberman, wait at least an hour before you do this, and go
90
get natural
minutes
light.
actually.
Do a cold plunge. Do
get up 5 hours before you usually do to do your morning routine.
But the thing with it is, doing something for yourself early on can really set the tone for your day and how you're going to kind of outlook, what your outlook is going to be for the rest of the day. And if you can have those types of good days more so than not, then your outcome is going to be substantially better, right? If you have more positive days than negative, and don't get me wrong, we all go through, tough times in our lives, trials and tribulations, and things that you feel you may not be able to recover from, and you do. Those are small periods of time, hopefully, in the grand scheme of things. And again, breaking that cycle and talking to yourself and making your self-reflection be something of positivity, changing, how your brain fires and allows you to be positive in nature and surrounding yourself with positive folks around you. That's how you become successful. That's how you become, and I'm not saying successful in business or life or anything else. It's successful with what you want to be successful in, because you have either the support or confidence in yourself to be able to do it. And I think most people, especially on the fitness side, don't have the confidence in themselves because they've failed so many times, but they've also never been with people that have the same views as them and want to accomplish the same goals as them and care for them in a way that allows them to be successful. Right. And, it takes a lot. Like at home, in my house, when I first started off with this, I was making my own food and doing my own things. Now my whole family, eats relatively healthy most of the time. Obviously, they had ice cream yesterday, but that's fine. But we're eating whole foods. We have prepared meals, cooked and made. We're cooking, obviously. And so, those types of things that you can do to change also are contagious to others as well around you, and can make a change. So I think if you listen to anything about this podcast, it's the power of your own mind, the power of you to control your own destiny, the power for you to make your own opportunity, the power for you to be successful in whatever you put your mind to is there. It just requires us to be able to tell ourselves that day in and day out and start to chip away at the things that make us successful over time, and continue to focus on that North Star.
Yeah, I think that the thing about it is you have to be prepared to do hard shit. Is the long and short of it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's easy to change your mindset. I'm not saying it's easy to rewrite the narrative. I'm not saying it's easy to overcome endless years of negative relationships with food or endless years of, feeling like a failure or whatever it might be. Like those things are hard. And that's okay too, because the things that you do that are difficult will then allow you to do more difficult things, and it will put you in a position and a headspace of I'm a person who can do difficult things because again I have evidence over here of me doing hard things before, and it unlocks so many more things after that. So while okay, yes, it is difficult to initially make the decision to do something different or change, like the possibilities that come after that are infinitely worth it. And another sort of topic on that, I was having a conversation with Shumik yesterday, back and forward, and he was talking about how he always feels the pressure whenever he's out on like corporate dinners or work dinners or whatever, that he has to eat a certain way, and he does a lot of them with what he does, which is absolutely fine. And I always say that control what you can control out of that, but anything inside of that, like, it's absolutely fine. And I sort of challenged him a little bit, and I was like, look, no matter what restaurant you go to, there is some way that you can have something that is in line with what you need it to be. Yes, okay, you might need to order slightly differently or ask for something on the side or whatever the fuck it might be to make it more in line with your goals. But don't be afraid to do that. And there was a bit of like, almost like he didn't want to be awkward or he didn't want to be different. And one thing that I keep hearing time and time again about what we're trying to do and about sort of like narrative around conferences and events like that, like every so often, whenever there's somebody who does something to break the cycle or rewrite the story, there are people that come after and said, this is what I've needed, or this is the way this always should have been, or I wish I had done this sooner. And it's like, you're in control to do those things. You don't need the permission from someone else to do it just because they're doing it. So if you feel like you're in a situation where you have to be different to hit your goals or stay in line with your goals, that's okay. Like if you need that permission, that's me right now giving you the permission to do those things. And you will see people around you follow suit or change or thank you for actually being that person, because potentially they're in the same position as you. They're just waiting for someone else to do it and make it okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at young Dave in high school, and I was bullied a lot. It's interesting because I was listening to, obviously this is a Back to the Future thing. When I went to the Comic-Con in Philadelphia, interesting enough, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but Biff, Tom Wilson, the guy that played Biff in Back to the Future, was heavily bullied as a kid, and he had told this story about when he was doing the scene in the car with Elaine, Marty's mom, and things like that, where he's basically like, forcefully kissing her and things like that. It was really difficult for him as an actor to do that because, he was bullied so much that he never wanted to be a bully. And even though it was in a scene of a movie, he'd come out of him and he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, seriously, is everything okay? Like, and she's like, we're acting, you're fine. Like, there's no issue, but that resonates with you, I think, for a long time. And, when I was in high school, my outlook on life was not great. Right. I didn't feel confident in myself as a kid. I barely passed high school. I didn't fit in with the normal curriculum of what was supposed to happen. All my family members thought I was just going to be like a McDonald's worker the rest of my life. I remember my accounting teacher saying something to the fact of like, Dave, you're never going to amount to anything in life. So I kind of went into, my adult years, not having confidence in myself or any ability to really think that I could accomplish anything. Right. And I will say that the Marine Corps for me was a huge game changer because they break you down and everything that you've learned before in the past and build you up in a way that gives you confidence in yourself, but it also, puts you into a system where other people have the same beliefs as you, protecting your country, serving your country, being able to, do whatever you possibly can to win a mission or to do a mission and complete it in high stress zones. And, it's interesting because that's directly parlayed into real life as well, where, when I look at business, I'm in a high stressful situation. Well, I guarantee you it's not as stressful as when I was in Iraq, so.
Yeah, I've done some hardship before. So this decision's absolutely fine. Like everybody relax, I got this.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we got an unhappy customer. I'm not getting blown up in a convoy or getting rocketed or getting shot at. Like, it's a big difference, right? But what's interesting, though, and I will say this, and you can look at this in a lot of different ways. You can break this down a lot of different ways. But stress in life is stress, and our bodies interpret stress very similarly, regardless of how bad that stress is. So when I was in Iraq, obviously I was stressed, right? And it was continual stress every single day. However, what's really interesting is I got used to it. I didn't look at every day as I was going to die anymore, even though the first few months I was like, I'm going to die every day, like bomb here, whatever. But I looked at it as, but then you start to get used to it. You're like, oh, this is a normal day. Your body gets used to it. Right. And I remember the story of when I first came back, I flew back into Bangor, Maine, which was an airport that we flew through. And there was a bunch of people holding signs and everything. And you mentioned not getting emotional. I don't get emotional very often, but I literally, that was fine. The people with signs and everything saying "Welcome back, troops" was really, heartwarming, and I thought that was great. And I felt like I was finally back in the States. I tell you what actually hit me was when I went to the bathroom, and the bathrooms were super clean. They were like all marble, and they had automatic flushers, and I was pissing in an automatic flusher, and I actually broke down and I started crying, and because you forgot that,
like normality almost.
Normality, like you were gone for, I was gone for a year, and I was so used to MREs and fighting and almost dying and all this other things that my life was that, right? And now I'm back and I have running water and I can just hit a handle or it's automatic and it just automatically flushes, and like you're like, my God, people don't understand how different life is in other places. And you have to look at life in a very different, view. And I just lost it. I just broke down and started crying literally as I was taking a piss. And I know it sounds stupid, but like, it's like that type of like hit that hits you emotionally where you're like, again, treat every day as if it was a gift and be happy for the things that are around you. Is life perfect? No. Is the things that are happening in the world perfect? No. But there's some pretty amazing effing things happening all across your life that you're missing if all you're doing is telling yourself that you're negative every single day, right? And it's our jobs. We can get out of that habit. We can change that habit. We can focus ourselves in a way that allow us to really enjoy life and be happy with what we're doing. And I don't want to dispel. There's obviously medical disorders and post-traumatic stress syndrome, and there's depression. I'm not minimizing that in any way, shape, or form. Nor am I saying that that's easily accomplishable to fix, right? It's obviously not. And I've lost, unfortunately, a lot of friends to that. But how we can get ourselves out of this is by first starting off looking inside first, having a drive or passion. I think there's a stat that most people that retire die within a certain period of time. It's like, when you lose a drive, you lose your passion to do something, you lose your mission in life. Normally you don't, your body's like, oh, I'm good. And starts to kind of shut itself down, right? We have to have that passion and drive to make ourselves happy, to do whatever we need to do. And we can break that cycle if we just look inside first and outward.
Yeah, and I think number one, it would have been interesting to have some sort of Whoop data from your time whenever you were in Iraq to see what your fucking stats were doing.
It's like you literally had a level 5 for 7 hours today. Zone 5 cardio.
Yeah, you hit a 21.0 on Whoop every day just by doing your day. I think that the point that I want to sort of, I guess, wrap up on that is, the thing you need to remember is you don't need to have gone to Iraq to deal with stressful situations. Like, everybody who has the worst thing or the best thing to happen is the worst and the best thing in their life. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that, somebody's ever worse off or whatever it might be. Like, whatever the worst thing that ever happened to you or whatever the best thing that ever happened to you is the worst and the best thing in your life. And I think, to go back to, I guess, the environment, like whenever we're talking last week on the narrative that you tell yourself and the people that you have around you, if you're surrounded by negative people online, in person, from whatever you read on social media, that is what will consume you. And I guess the cliche one is you're the product of the people the 5 people or however many people it is that you spend the most time with. So if that is something that you want to change, then those are the things that you need to change. And it comes down to you making the decision. And one quote that Matt always uses and has made a sticker of for the guys that he works with is, expect to self-rescue. No one's coming to save you. No one is going to do it for you. So if you're not happy and you want something to change, then change it, because I'm not going to come and do it. And I can sit here and talk on a fucking podcast all day long, but unless you actually take the action to do it, then you're still going to live the same life. And the one thing that I had on my, whenever I was first a PT and we had a bit of bio, and the quote that I had on mine is, nothing changes if nothing changes. You can't expect to do the same things and get a different outcome every single time.
I'll close with this as the final parting way. It's amazing what our minds can do. Let me just give an example. I can remember the best steak I've ever had. I can remember the best meal I've ever had, right? You're like, hey, how does this compare when you go to a restaurant? How does this compare to, the best steak that you've ever had or the best chicken you've ever had or whatever, right? You always compare it, but I guarantee you the best steak you ever had was a combination of the steak and the people you were with. And I'll give you a prime example of how powerful the mind is. When I was in Iraq for a year, I flew back on a C-130, which is a whole nother story in itself. All the Marines were vomiting everywhere. It was a chain reaction. People were all covered in vomit. The Air Force guys were messing with us, like diving and stuff, and we're just like vomiting everywhere. I didn't vomit, but I had vomit all over me. It was like literally like 30 Marines vomiting on each other. It was awful. It was like something you see out of a fucking horror movie. But anyways, so we get to Kuwait, and they had a Subway on the base that they had built. And, obviously I'd been eating MREs or, chow hall food or things like that, depending on where I was at, but never any type of thing like Subway. And I remember getting a Asiago cheese, chicken teriyaki, foot long sandwich. And still to this day, I can remember that sandwich was the best food I've ever eaten in my entire life. And why is that though? I was going home. I'd been in Iraq for a year. I was safe. And it's the first real food that reminded me of home that I had had for a year. Right. And still to this day, when I think about it, and I can never, by the way, I can never replicate that chicken teriyaki sandwich. When I go to Subway now, it tastes nowhere near as good as it did then. But that was the best food I've ever had in my entire life. And that just goes to show you the power of your mind and what you can tell yourself, and the experiences that you have can reflect that change of positivity by being with other people to share with, or coming out of a bad spot in your life, or giving yourself a lot of positivity. Your mind can do wonderful things.
I agree. Well, that's your lessons for this week from Ben and Dave.
Pretty deep today.
Good, though. Good. I think that the one thing that I guess I want to do more of is actually share what's actually going on with me and with you and like our stories, because that's the truest place that I can speak from is my own experiences, and it sort of breaks down the barrier of me being the coach and whoever the listener is. It shows me in a light of being an actual real human. So thanks everybody for listening. See you next week.
Due time for me.
Yeah. Keep me posted.
I will. Sounds good.
Right.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Catch you next week. Bye.